Primaris Lt. The concept has been well and truly worn out. You have an idea for a lieutenant with badass Tyranid carapace replacement armor panels? What do you mean it's not out till June? Well, I'll have to make my own now, won't I? Now, if you couldn't tell from the intro, I'm actually really excited for the new Phobos Lieutenant that seems to be coming in the upcoming 10th edition launch box. I mean, it's not like Marines actually needed more models, but at least they're going in a little bit of a different direction with this one. Even more excitingly, I realized that I could take this lowly infiltrator and upgrade him into the badass Tyrannic War veteran lieutenant we see in the new trailer. Now, in addition to my lucky newly commissioned officer, who also gets a promotion in base size up to 40mm, I'm also going to need to raid the armories and some filthy Xenos biomass to arm and armor him. Now, the shoulder pad replacement and Tyranid he's standing on should be handled by some of the chitinous parts from my Tyranids bits box, and there's even a little claw to act as a trophy on his waist. For his weaponry, I have a bolter with straps that should do perfectly as the basis for our combi flamer, as well as the flame-throwing business end from an aggressor gauntlet. When fighting the Tyranids, it would seem the name of the game is knives. Lots and lots of knives. So we'll need a knife-wielding arm to replace his current bolter arm. At this point, I've not quite decided on a head for him, but I've got a few front runners that are similar to the ones released on the new model. Tools-wise, I've got my snips, hobby knife, super glue and plastic glue, and maybe a pair of tweezers for putting some smaller parts into place. Converting models is a really good way of putting your own stamp on an army. So before I jump into my conversion today, let me know in the comments down below what was the most recent character you converted for your army. Right, there's some excess biomass on this model that I need to remove. Being as careful as possible, I slid my hobby knife into the arm joint. Fortunately, it pries loose without too much hassle. Let's hope that the head is equally forgiving. A bit more pressure required, but all good. I have had the collar on models previously buckle under the weight of the knife when doing this, so I'm happy that this time it came off without a hitch. Now, I'm not sure how the conversion is going to come together, so I also slice off the pistol at his waist. In the end, this turned out to be the most difficult removal, but with the application of my hobby snips and the sacrificing of the pistol holster to the hobby gods, this guy is all ready for his ritual cleansing, preparing for his promotion. Now, because I had previously painted this model, I was going to need to strip the paint off in order to get even layers for my new paint job. Now, previously, I would have used this little container of BioStrip for my purposes, but today I decided to go with an even bigger container of BioStrip, which had a child lock, and I'm embarrassed at how long it took me to get into, but in the end it was open and poured into a small glass container. I added in the model and then used an old toothbrush to get into all the cracks and crevices of the model. I left him to bathe in the cleansing oils of renewal while I worked on the combi flamer. The aggressor gauntlet was cut away, leaving the flame-throwing end, and a slot was cut into the bolter to house it. I then attached these parts with plastic glue. Now, this lieutenant is always sure to bring plenty of fuel to the Tyranid bonfire, so I cut the fuel tank from a tactical marine flamer and attached it in a similar way to the front part. With the combi flamer ready, let's check in on our marine and how he's enjoying his spa day. After just a few minutes in the BioStrip, he's ready for a quick scrub. I love this stuff, it's so quick to work and really easy to remove, and it doesn't stink out your house like a lot of paint stripping solutions. Now, you can actually get BioStrip in my affiliate links for Element Games in the description down below, so please do consider following those links. If you want to support the channel and you enjoy what I do here, I get a small kickback on anything you purchase, and you get discounted prices on Games Workshop products. Win-win. Back to the scrubbing, and all you need to wash this stuff off is some soapy water. This particular apothecarian seems to go with an arabesque wood, which seems appropriate for a superstitious arming ritual. Once toweled dry, I gently prise him off the base. I did lose a bit of the sculpted detail here, but it's not the end of the world, as I was planning to snip this off later anyway. Now that he's cleansed and ready for battle, let's simulate some Tyranid battle damage. Looking at the size of the model, this Tyranid warrior head should be the perfect size for replacing his shoulder pads. I trimmed the chitin plates to size, and then work on hollowing this out. Now, I don't go too far with this. You want to avoid compromising the integrity of your part, so instead I cut away the shoulder pad on the Marine to fit, and stuck his makeshift shoulder pad in place with plastic glue. Another longer piece of chitinous plate was used for the forearm guard, with a little nook carved out of the arm to house it. Waste not, want not, the rest of the Tyranid head used for the shoulder pad is repurposed into his tactical standing point. At least it's technically not a tactical rock. I trimmed down the feet of the model, as well as trimming a flat place for the foot to stand on the Tyranid head. And with that, I do the slightly odd task of sticking one foot with superglue and one foot with plastic glue to the base and the Tyranid head crest respectively. The previously removed arm was now replaced with another knife-wielding arm, and I made another knife which would be stabbed into the Tyranid on the base, as per the reference model. I made this from a couple of bits, first off the handle off of a bolter, and a little blade or bayonet thing that I had lying around in the bits box. I added the combi flamer, shoulder pad, and an extra grenade for that real one-man army look. This came attached to what looks like a gas mask. For a quick tip, I used a paper clip to push small parts into place to avoid poking around with my massive troll fingers. With the gas mask part acquired, I decide on a head and carve some deep scratches down one side of the face, again matching the reference image. The conversion parts are done, so let's move on to getting him painted up. I primed the model black, base coated with Rhinox hide, and then did a slightly more specular highlight with 50/50 Rhinox hide and Mephiston red. Finally, a highlight with pure Mephiston red, focused around the top of the model. This was all done with an airbrush, but as per usual, you can get the same effect with a bit of patience and some time with glazing with a brush. Onto the brush painting, and it's something I never thought I'd say while painting my Blood Angels. Let's start with the chitin plating. I blocked out the Tyranid plates with black, and while I had the paint on my palette, I also painted all the webbing between the armor panels. Now this guy will inevitably be facing off against Meg's Hive Fleet Medusa, who have this really cool poppy blue color as an accent to their armor plates. I started with Vallejo Dark Blue, which I applied in downward strokes to the bottom third of the armor panels and the edges of the plates. I follow this pattern, this time with Vallejo Blue, but focused a little bit more towards the edges. Next, I started using pure Sky Blue, but this jump was a little too harsh, so instead I mixed 50/50 Sky Blue and regular blue for small scratchy lines at the bottom of the plates. This left me with the Sky Blue for an edge highlight on the sharpest edges. I next blocked in the silver parts with Vallejo Gunmetal Grey, and the gold parts with Vallejo Brass. It's definitely still gold. The leather parts were base coated chocolate brown, and then I tried to get a nice bone recipe out of the white colours that I had, but I'll admit I didn't get it quite right on this one. I'll come back and revisit it in the future. I panel lined all of the armour with thinned black paint for really deep shadows, and also shaded over the metallic parts with a slightly thinner black wash. The gold parts got a layer of Reichland flesh shade. Next, onto highlighting the armour. I loaded a 50/50 mix of Scarlet and Mephiston Red onto the palette, thinning it down a little and applying it to raised areas and edges. This was followed up with pure Scarlet near the top of the model and more prominent edges, and then a final edge highlight only on the uppermost raised parts with some off-white added into the Scarlet. The gunmetal parts got a layer of silver on the edges, and the gold was touched up with more brass colour. A small highlight of sea grey was also applied to the bolter and any exposed armor webbing. Now I knew that I wanted to show that his combi flamer had gotten a lot of use in the Tyrannic Wars, so I decided to apply some flamer burn, starting with a wash of Reichland flesh shade, then focusing Druchii violet nearer the tip, and finally Achillean green right on the very end. Normally I would use Guilliman blue glaze for this, but I'm fresh out, so I was sure to thin the Achillean green a lot, as the colour here can be really vibrant if you leave it as is. For the face, I started from a base coat of mahogany, to which I added progressively more dark flesh, using this to accentuate the cheeks and brow line, but also to highlight his scars. I used an off-white for the white of the eye and a dot of black, and then a brown-black wash into the other eye, which is damaged beyond repair. Now to finish this guy off, I wanted to try my hand at some goo effects. These will be used for the Tyranid blood or ichor on his blade and on the little head on the base. I took a piece of fishing wire and applied blobs of glue, first PVA and then super glue, and left them to dry. You want to try and get some really cool organic shapes and maybe some droplets depending on what you're using it for. I also applied some PVA glue to the base, and then to both of these parts I applied purple ink, a highlight of light purple, and finally a gloss varnish to make it look really goopy. With that, here's our finished lieutenant, ready to take on all that 10th edition has to offer. Let me know what you reckon in the comments down below, and check out another video, there should be one on the screen somewhere here, which will be a previous Kitbash that I did. Don't forget to use the affiliate links for Element Games in the description down below for some cheap hobby supplies, and in the meantime, my name has been Ollie, this has been my hobby, and I'll see you next time.